this page tonight. Because as ridiculous as it sounds, I have to stagger my times. I have to change the pages I broadcast from to avoid those who are doing their endeavor best to silence us. Those who do not move do not notice their chains. Rosa Luxemburg. Indeed. Tonight, the silence of the lambs. A very important issue because there's some stuff taking place in the world that is impacting Trinidad and Tobago heavily. It may crush Trinidad and Tobago if we're not careful. Please share the video. We need to see what kind of numbers we can get on this page tonight. I know it's early. You're going to be catching people off guard. But we take it from here. Yeah. And the silence of the lambs. And that issue has to do with what dictators require to achieve power is that the population disbelieve what they are seeing with their own eyes. In the case of Trinidad and Tobago, it is becoming more and more difficult to pretend that what you are seeing is not what is taking place. I have to watch these numbers and I have to keep my eye on those numbers. If in the next couple of minutes we don't get it up past 600-700, we're going to have to stop here and go back to the other page and launch there. So it's really going to be a numbers game tonight, and that numbers game is going to require us to share the video widely. We are 314. We can get those numbers up, and we need to get them up. So this is where we're at. The cobra venom reserved for the Minister of Foreign and CARICOM Affairs was beguilingly camouflaged with the nectar in the opening paragraph, these using the persona of the opposition leader to whet the reader's appetite. The CMO gave a measured account of how the Pfizer vaccines arrived at the airport, apparently at or close to the time the Prime Minister had been speaking to us. Later that day, the Minister of Foreign and CARICOM Affairs departed from his normally careful language when seeking to defend the shipment. The versions of this minister and the CMO, whether all clearances from Customs and the Ministry of Health had been received, conflicted. The CMO's version seems to be the accurate one because the shipment had to go into Customs bond on arrival and was only cleared on Wednesday last. It is so terribly disappointing that this minister would seek to portray as mischief the uncovering of the non-disclosure and the inevitable speculation about for whom the vaccines were intended, which was intense because they were the Pfizer brand. That government response was another mama guy, plain and simple. The government let itself get catch importing Pfizer on the side. The mischief lay in the non-disclosure. History has lessons for us. That's probably why some old-time events are resurfacing. The sojourn of Dennis Stafford, the English criminal who lined in Trinidad in high society while an escape from a London prison, is one such event. I have related this event countless times because it's a prime example of the lack of due diligence in respect of things foreign, especially of lighter shades. Continuing vaccine mama guy. We continue. The utterances of the leader of the opposition, this is now Martin Daly. Actually, I'm not reading this because it's nonsense. And every now and then, Martin Daly moves from intelligent, critical thinker to purveyor of nonsense. I'm not reading that into the public space. We're at 473, and that is taking us too long, so maybe I will cancel this live and go to the other page and we'll see what happens there. So meet me on the Philip Edward Alexander, the original Philip Edward Alexander page. We want to see how high we could have taken these numbers, because we know that after we cross 1,200 people start getting bumped off the other live, the other page. So we wanted to see how far we could get this up beyond that. And we're at 501. Silence of the Lambs. This is important. It's important what I'm about to read to you. And Father in heaven, I have lost my page, so I'm trying to get back to there. Boy, the amount of this that I get. So what you all are doing is a fellow named Nicholas Boxer. I don't know if that's his real name, but he has a problem with why are there no East Indians in the national football team. So this is the attack I get today. Trinidad too racial, and the people there look for what they get in. It's always taking someone's side. I see you posting over a year now. Any changes, Phil? I guess Nicholas Boxer new to me. I'm actually posting a lot longer. So clearly what you're doing isn't working, but you keep going. Rowley is the PM Trinidad deserves, and it is sad that we as citizens must suffer. And by the way, you couldn't even answer the question. You would say, ask me, why are there no East Indians in the national football team? I am an Indian, this is what he says. And years I have seen talent undermined because of our heritage, skin color, and hair. But you won't dare bring that up, he says to me. Because it's for some strange reason, it's taboo. Anyhow, have a nice one. What has amazed me is this guy and a lady named Carol who called me earlier. She wanted to tell me stuff that she says I need to know because she saw one of my videos and I'm on the right track. But there is stuff that she thinks that I need to know, and the Nuremberg codes and all this kind of stuff. Now I want to tell people something. I say this repeatedly. Unless you're in the Pfizer boardroom, you don't have stuff that I don't have. Everything that's out there I have. It comes to me. Drowning. I'm drowning in information. The thing that I want to read to you right now, actually, let me see if I could search it. I might be able to search it. So give me 2 minutes. I should go out and come back in. All right, so hear this. Countries like Mongolia, Seychelles, and Bahrain had relied on the easily accessible Chinese COVID-19 vaccines to combat the coronavirus pandemic and bring back normalcies. These countries are now battling a surge in infections. Example from several countries suggest that the Chinese vaccines may not be very effective at preventing the spread of the virus, particularly the new variants reported in New York Times. In Seychelles, Chile, Bahrain, and Mongolia, about 50 to 68% of the population have been, 68% of the populations, plural, have been fully inoculated with Chinese vaccines, outpacing the United States, according to our World in Data, a data tracking project. They are also among the top 10 countries with the worst COVID-19 outbreaks as recently as last week. If the vaccines are sufficiently good, we should not see this pattern, said Jin Dongyan, a virologist at the University of Hong Kong. The Chinese have a responsibility to remedy this. Amid uncertainty over how countries with relatively high inoculation rates are suffering new outbreaks, scientists have pointed out to relaxing of social controls and careless behavior. Israel, which has the second highest vaccination rate in the world, with shots from Pfizer after Seychelles, reports 4.95 new COVID-19 cases per million, less than 5 cases per million. On the other hand, Seychelles, which had relied mostly on Sinopharm, that number is more than 716 cases per million. China, as well as the more than 90 nations that have received the Chinese shots, may end up as a country that is fully vaccinated but partly protected from the virus, contending with rolling lockdowns, testing, and limits on day-to-day life for months or years to come. Moreover, economies could remain held back, reported the New York Times. Beijing saw its vaccine diplomacy as an opportunity to emerge from the pandemic as a more influential global power. China's top leader, Xi Jinping, pledged to deliver a Chinese shot that could be easily stored and transported to millions of people around the world. Mongolia, relying on Chinese aid, quickly rolled out an inoculation program and eased restrictions, vaccinating 52% of its population. However, it recorded 2,400 new infections on Sunday, a quadrupling from a month before. In a statement, China's foreign ministry said it did not see a link between the recent outbreak and its vaccines. It cited the World Health Organization as saying that the vaccination rates in certain countries had not reached sufficient levels to prevent outbreaks, and that countries needed to continue to maintain controls, according to the New York Times. Relevant reports and data also show that many countries that use Chinese-made vaccines have expressed that they are safe and reliable, and have played a good role in the epidemic prevention efforts, the ministry said. While the Pfizer, BioNTech, and Moderna vaccines have efficacy rates of more than 90%, China's Sinopharm vaccine has an efficacy rate of 78.1%, and the Sinovac vaccine a rate of 51%. Moreover, the Chinese companies have not released much clinical data to show how their vaccines work at preventing transmission. Data on breakthrough infections has not been made available either, though a Sinovac study out of Chile showed that the vaccine was less effective than those from Pfizer, BioNTech, and Moderna at preventing infection among vaccinated individuals. William Schaffner, medical director of the National Foundation for Infectious Disease at Vanderbilt University, said the rates of Chinese shots could be low enough to sustain some transmission, as well as create illness of a substantial amount in the highly vaccinated population, even though it keeps people largely out of the hospital. Despite the spike in cases, officials in both the Seychelles and Mongolia have defended Sinopharm, saying it is effective in preventing severe cases of the disease. Nikolai Petrovsky, a professor at the College of Medicine and Public Health at Flinders University in Australia, said that with all of the evidence, it would be reasonable to assume that the Sinopharm vaccine had minimal effect on curbing transmission. He said that a major risk with the Chinese inoculation is that vaccinated people may have few or no symptoms and still spread the virus to others. In Indonesia, where a new variant is spreading, more than 350 doctors and healthcare workers recently came down with COVID-19 despite being fully vaccinated with Sinovac, according to the risk mitigation team of the Indonesian Medical Association. Bahrain and the United Arab Emirates were the first two countries to approve the Sinopharm shot, even before late-stage clinical trial data was released. Since then, there have been extensive reports of vaccinated people falling ill in both countries, the New York Times reported. Keith Rowley said to the nation, "What is the best vaccine to take is the first vaccine available." I want to tell you that's bullshit. I want to tell you that's pure bullshit. Today, Priya Bihari of AZP News called me to tell me, "Philip, you have a massive following. People want to vote for you as the third force, but they want you to use cleaner language." I want to tell you all something. I want to use words like bullshit and jackass because I don't want to come across like Mariano Brown and Vasant Barrett. I don't want people to see me like just another political opportunist looking for a work, because I'm not. So I plan to be authentic and stay my own honest self. And even if I were Prime Minister of this country, a jackass would be called a jackass and bullshit would be called bullshit. If you don't like that, then you're going to have to vote for a jackass and tolerate bullshit. The irony of that statement shouldn't be lost on you. It's not lost on me. Moving forward, the entire team of the Trinidad and Tobago public health pandemic response has failed us. We are counting now the amount of failings they have failed. Rolling out something as simple as time and motion. Fuad Khan said it today. Now, I don't want to sound like I'm endorsing Fuad Khan, but he's correct. A vaccine is not a difficult thing to administer. Coordinating a line is not a difficult thing to do. So why can't you do both? Why can't you have soldiers coordinating the line and doctors and nurses administering the vaccination? Why is it so difficult for these people to do basic things? Why? Why? Why is it so difficult for them to do basic things? Our deaths per million is too high. Our transmission of COVID-19 that began with a Tobago zest that shot through the roof after the Easter weekend, when Easter Monday, when Keith Rowley was supposed to get his first Sinopharm vaccine and he didn't show up for it because he said he already had COVID. It seems that, and people have been talking a lot of stuff about shedding and all kind of thing that I don't want to say is crap, but what I want to say is we have to stop looking for excuses at our end. All we need on our side is the information to challenge those in office. You see, the reason I call the video the silence of the lambs, nobody voted a dictator into office. Nobody said you could have dictatorial powers. Nobody said that you could get into office and then change the rules of the game. Like changing the rules of how to appoint a commissioner of police. Right now, we're watching that with serious concern. Because the PNM is looking like they are working hard at creating a dictatorship in this country. And if that is the case, the lambs have two choices: learn to roar or settle for slaughter. Now, most of you would be saying, even those that don't cuss, ironically, would be saying, F Trinidad, G and H Trinidad too. I want to get on a plane and get out. Open it, I want to get out. Leave who can't get out to catch the ass and dead. Well, that's a position that you could take. But anywhere that you go in the world that works, I want you to know that people in their history fought to make their countries better. And we have every responsibility and every right to fight to make ours better as well. And when I say fight, I don't mean pelt stone, light thing on fire and break thing. You don't want to come to that. The best and strongest fights in any country in the world is the power of the people and their vote, their labor, and their consumption. Those things, you see, especially in Trinidad. Now, I don't know how far China is willing to fund dictatorships anywhere in the world while they loot those countries, because the problem with our system of governance is that the Prime Minister and his cabinet has untrammeled authority and no oversight, and they could sign away and sell just about anything. To this day, the only time you will know the true owners of Trinidad and Tobago Pitch Lake is if you elect me to office. Because I am the only person, the only politician in this country that has been asking for years, how come we don't see the income statement and expenditure statement of Lake Asphalt in the budget when we should, if we owned it? Now people are going to say, Kamala sell it, others going to say Keith sell it, and I don't understand why it is so difficult to find out who owns it if it was ours. If it ever was ours. I'll tell you this, we ended up with Petrotrin because Eric Williams used a power the Prime Minister has to nationalize things. Nationalize banks, nationalize gas stations, nationalize oil companies, and created National Petroleum, Petrotrin, and other things. I want to tell you something. The next Prime Minister that you elect to office have to swing a big stick and clean house. And everybody, like the water park down in Chagaramas, the bullshit that the PNM and the UNC tells you about why that extensive, expensive, and valuable piece of waterfront was handed over to people to build a water park to block off the sea. Somebody has to go down there and say, sorry, this was bullshit at the conception stage. And while you all had an opportunity to romp under the PNM and the UNC, somebody has to secure the will and the interest of all the people of Trinidad and Tobago. So move your water park and give you a year. Move it. And in that year, get it out of here. Because our beachfronts and our waterfronts should be the untrammeled rights of the people. And a government that would go Cocorite and Waterhole used to be fishing villages, and they can be again, alongside Bayside Towers. And Bayside Towers should learn to live with the people in Cocorite and their fishing village, or Sabga could come and lift up Bayside Towers and take it with him. That's the kind of Prime Minister you need. That's not the Prime Minister you have. The Prime Minister you have and have had have been more willing to work with the moneyed class at the expense of the mass of people that made all of them rich. Because without the mass of taxpayers, Sabga still selling milk off the back of a van. Yeah, all his children and grandchildren too. Without workers in Carib, without drinkers of Carib Beer, all Trinbagonians, Carib is nothing. And what he inherited from the actual McEnany All-Stars, I don't go down Sabga throat too much tonight, but I just want to show you that the power of the people is greater than the people in power. Without the workers in Carib and without people to buy Carib, in about 2 weeks' time, Sabga going to call a board meeting and say, listen, cut we losses and hope the infection don't spread. Now, I'm just using Sabga as an example, but I could use Christian Moutet. If Trinidadians say from tomorrow, all are we going by Ish and eating Royal Castle and leaving KFC to dead, there'll be a game to see how long that company going to continue to fund it. And it's not just them. And again, I'm saying this so you understand. It could be the smallest grocery in town. It could be Westby's. If Brian Bachu and them not treating the workers good, the workers could stand down. And yes, there will be other workers, Spanish, Nigerians, Chinese, willing to run in there and pack bag and say to F with Trinidadians. But without the actual Trinidadians that come and shop inside of there, how he paying the Chinese and the Spanish and the Nigerians? And that is the power of the double whammy of your labor and your consumption. And it is the consumption and labor of the people of Trinidad and Tobago that has made every rich person in this country rich. It starts at the bottom and it goes up. And what is a terrible and damning shame is that when it gets up, it clouds the minds of the people on top, and they forget that those masses need a life too. And that's what we need to keep in mind. That you need to elect to office people who understand that the well-being of all the citizens is the purpose, function, and reason for government. There's no other purpose. There's no other function. And there's no other reason. The purpose of government is not business. You shutting down Cal. We could go go back to the Biwi conversation when Biwi was worth $3 billion US and members of the board of directors had set up transshipment fuel depots in Barbados, costing an extra leg and an extra run and an extra piece of money because they had the opportunity and no oversight. And it's the same thing that's going on in the actual cabinet and the actual government. This looting that's taking place that they don't want nobody to talk about, that they'll fire media workers who ask questions and they'll sue you for calling their names. The reason they don't want this spoken about is because at some point, this whole tower of Babel, hey, Tower of Babel, Tower of Babel, Tower of Babel that they're building could collapse. Yeah? That's the truth. That's the absolute God-given truth. And the lambs are extremely silent. And all of the people who sitting down waiting for a hamper have paid for those hampers. We've paid the salaries of those who are going to hand out the hampers. We paid the salaries of those who put in together the hampers. We paid for the shoes and the socks and the gas and the car. We paid for the life and the food in the children's belly. We've paid for all of those things collectively. No one raindrop causes the flood. All the raindrops together do. And that's what we are. The taxpayers of this country. 40% of the last budget was direct taxation. That means almost $30 billion came out of taxpayers' pockets for you to come back and say that you're going to spend it on the citizens of the country, but you're not. You're spending it in failed P&M constituencies, so you're uncovering everybody else to cover who keeping you in office. And that is criminal politics, because you're actually forcing the rest of the country to pay for the upkeep of people who voting against them. And that's wrong. That's wrong, but that won't change unless we change it. That won't change unless we write laws to make that illegal. In any proper functional country in the world, you would have an organization of state that I can raise that issue about Sinopharm tomorrow. Who do I raise it with? The President of the Republic? Let's start there. She is as powerless as Ansel Roger now. She's as powerless as a media worker if they don't toe the line. She's as powerless as, give me a better analogy, she has no power, none. She draws a very, very big salary, a lot of perks for basically doing nothing. And it's a flaw in our country that it exists. It does nothing to uphold our democracy. Having a president of the republic whose functions could be done by the president of the Senate, the Speaker of the House, and the Chief Justice, to name a few, was the point. What was the point of the $108 million we spent on our president's house and we don't need? It wasn't built to be president's house. So let's stop the fast. We could stop the fast and spending that. We don't need ceremonial or titular heads. What we need are functional bodies in positions of state dedicated to the upliftment of everybody in the country. Now, every politician knows what I just said. The president knows what I said, and it's true. She knows it to be true. Every president that's watching this show right now, and I know that they do, even if they have to use fake profiles to do it. Every judge, every magistrate, every member of parliament, every political wannabe knows that our entire system of governance is shit and it's been set up to be shit for a long time. And most of them have been tolerating this shit as long as it benefits them while they are in office. If they are Stephen Cadiz, Mariano Brown, Vassan Barrett, Carolyn C. Prasad Bechan, they wait till they come out of their full term to talk. To tell you all of a sudden, we have the answers. Why didn't you do it while you were there? Talk to any of the Ramona Ramdials. Talk to anybody sitting in that parliament now in opposition in the UNC. And they'll tell you, well, boy, we tried to raise it, but you can't raise it. For some reason, this one don't listen and that one not talking. And all that is bullshit. All of it is bullshit. If you want something to be an issue, look at Stephen Cadiz, Vassan Barrett, Gypsy, look at Mariano Brown, look at Carolyn C. Prasad Bechan. When they want to talk now, while they have no power, they're getting their voices heard. So why couldn't you get your voice heard while you had power? I'll tell you why. There's a simple answer. Because when you have those perks, when you have those blue lights, when you have police officers in white jackets calling you yes sir, no sir, yes ma'am, no ma'am, and somebody making sure your tea get kept hot on your desk all the freaking time, That power heady, and the salary nice too. And the perks, you get to travel the world and land and meet the diplomatic circuit and go out and boogie a little bit and feel like you're more important and more accomplished than you actually are. But you've done nothing of value to rescue the country, and worse. I would respect these people more if they got out of office and shut the hell up. Shut the hell. You know who I'm respecting? Prakash Ramada. He out, he done. You can't find Prakash for a small goal side. Jensen Fox. I saw him the other day. I don't know if he's still alive or what he doing, but I bounced him up delivering as a courier for TT Post. Jensen come out, he gone. He sit down there like Carson Charles, trading on the remnants and dregs of a NAR. I mean, it's like, imagine if you were Barcelona and then the whole side come down to a B team, not a C team, not a D team, a F team, and they have nobody left on the team. You alone there, and you still pretending that it's Barcelona was heyday. It's a pretense and it's a game. And then they trade on that and they put all the logos together. They put UNC and NAR, COP and fool you. But that's not what you need anymore. And I'm saying that, silence the lambs, because the lambs have stayed silent in this country while all that bullshit has gone on for too long. And people are too willing to defend nonsense. They're too willing to defend nonsense. And I don't like that part of our culture. I don't like that we okay that Calypso dead and Pan dead and Carnival dead, because if Dean Akin stop playing mass tomorrow, they have no Carnival. They have to start over from scratch with broomstick and dustbin cover. Everything that is anything in Carnival is already owned by shareholders, by stakeholders. That doesn't include the masses, that doesn't contribute to the coffers of the state in any way, that doesn't take Trinidad to the world. All these people are doing, and rightly so, because business is in the business of profit, is taking from it as much as they could and enriching themselves as much as they could for as long as they could. So when you hear, and I'm going to touch back on this again, Michael B. Jordan, name a rum after something Trinidadian. Michael B. Jordan must be one of the top 20 stars in the world right now, most recognizable names and faces. So when he does that, instead of writing petitions, jackass, to stop him, jackass, to play best black, jackass, because Carnival is not just about black people, it's not just about slavery. It may have started with the slave owners, and some of the slaves may have copied what Massa was doing at his little pre-Lenten party and copied it and dressed like Massa and paraded like Massa, fine. But everybody else had to come. You see, when the PNM influence went deep into the Calypso tents and used the Calypso tents to be a racial dagger, what they didn't realize is the Calypso tents were also businesses, and that 90% of the people who were spending money at the door wasn't interested in your racist drivel. So they stopped coming. And then all of a sudden, you're singing big like Mr. Shaq. Mr. Shaq, big tune when UNC in office, when PNM in office, your family and your friends losing their shirt, their pants and their panty, but you have nothing to sing about PNM because you're making sure your little piece of gravy train still running. And Crow ain't gonna stand up and sing, all you look for that against Rowley. But they vote for that, but he can't sing that because you have a CPAP walk and a CPAP van. So he had to pretend that everything A-okay, and that's wrong. That's wrong. That's what's wrong with us. That's what's wrong with us. From the very top, come right down, Amy Brown, all of them, they sold their souls so that they could feel better than they are. They have no interest in country. They have no interest in country. In that story, what you heard, what Ronald Bowler wrote, it's a fact. Amy Brown and Roshan Parashram have two conflicting versions of what took place with the Pfizer vaccine. I'm telling you, that was a smuggling operation that got exposed. And the customs officer that stopped it should be given a national award because it's the first time. It's the first time. They come in there, fling the paper to whom it may concern. They say, hold up, selector. You need some more papers to go with this. Nah, Pally. Yes, see where they're from our United States State Department. He said, brother, this could be from Jesus, Mary, and Joseph. They have some other papers the law say you're supposed to have. And if you haven't, I'm confiscating this and I'm holding you. You're smuggling drugs. That's what took place. That is what took place. They call all kind of people. Chief Farmer says, yeah, I know what to do, call the army. There was state of emergency, the army came. The freaking army came to customs. That's what we went through. And then Fitzgerald Hines write 3 releases, try 3 versions of 2 releases. They still contradicting themselves. They still. And Keith Rowley had to come back the next week and say, well, we knew it was coming. Bullshit. Bullshit, bullshit, bullshit. You never knew it was coming. It was a smuggling operation. If you knew it was coming, you didn't expect it to get catch. So shush, because you don't want to get caught up in this. At some point, if this was a real country, we would have something like the FBI, and they'd investigate it. They'd pull at those threads. The things that don't add up are the things that you need to pull at. And the things that not adding up here is that the United States would never send a half case of Pfizer vaccine in the dead of night on an unannounced flight with a document saying to whom it may concern. All of that. I was going back to the 2 names, the woman who signed that letter and the woman who brought the vaccines. And 2 of them have to give us more information because it have to go up that food chain in the United States. And at some point, somebody going to say, all right, you catch me. I know who can have connections with them inside of here to make them use we letterhead and talk shit. Because that's what it was. Somebody conned somebody into using a United States State Department letterhead. If the letterhead authentic, I don't know. I don't know the name of the person who put out the release on behalf of the entire United States of America and didn't sign it. I have never seen that in all of my life. The United States of America that is trying to vaccinate 500 million people send 200 vaccines to Trinidad with a letter mark to whom it concerned. And when you call the embassy to find out about that, they say, we can't answer you now, give it till tomorrow. You needed 24 hours to answer something that you are party to, that you sent. You don't have documentation at the front desk for them to read. This is part of the Americans Outreach Program. This is direct from security to security. We want to make sure Trinidad is strong and standing vibrant with us. All of it is bullshit. All of it. Who signed that release? I don't care who signed the release on behalf of the Ministry of National Security. I blame Fitzgerald Hines. From the mere fact that Fitzgerald Hines could be the Minister of National Security, every law enforcement officer in this country and everybody working in national security have to be depressed because that jackass is the boss. And that's wrong. You can't foist that on career officers. People who have 10, 20, 30 years in service have to come and answer to a jackass who run away from water and Beta. But forget all of that. There is somebody in the United States Embassy who, to do damage control, wrote a release, but they're signing my name to that partner, all you're on your own. But that tell you everything you need to know. Everything you need to know. It wasn't signed with pride. J. Jonah Jameson, nothing. Chief, whatever, nothing. We don't have an ambassador, so head of mission, nothing. Not janitor, nothing. Nobody signed it. So it is a piece of fluff. It's nothing. It's not an official document until somebody sign it. Until you know the name, the title, the office, the position, the level of authority that person has. We don't know who it is. Put that out. So it's bullshit. But what you have going on now in your country is a conspiracy that includes the Prime Minister, the Chief Medical Officer, a cabinet minister, Minister of Foreign Affairs, a cabinet minister, Minister of National Security, a cabinet minister, Minister of Energy, all of them colluding to sell you bullshit that they can't defend. And Keith Rowley want that to go away. Like he want the fact that they made an absolute mess of the rollout of vaccines. And they want you to pretend that when he said the buck stops with him, that it's supposed to stop there, but if the buck stops with you, fire your blast itself. Because somebody needs to be fired over the clusterfuck that was the vaccine rollout that Wednesday. And all of the people in Trinidad and Tobago that you beat into a frenzy with your bullshit on your press conference when you tell them, we're getting vaccine from Africa, vaccine from India, vaccine from Rada, vaccine from America, we need everything. We have vaccine coming from our side. Vaccine landing tonight, tomorrow, the next day. It was bullshitting the people. And by the Thursday, the people had to go back and find out and start up in the rain to find out that you only had 50 vaccines for them. And you had thousands of people line up and have these jackasses coming to say, well, all they didn't know, it was the social distance. Jackass, inside your press conference, all you're breaking the law. Inside your press conference, not one of you have the testicular fortitude, belly, balls, or backbone to tell Rowley, brother, you can't stand up here and preach to the country about wearing a freaking mask if you don't wear one. Who the ass is you? But not Parashram, not Richards, not Hines, not Trotman, and certainly not Dialsing have that kind of balls. So don't lecture we and don't give we talk, because I kind of fed up of that. Time to come straight. Somebody should have been fired over that vaccination rollout. And the fact that you cannot do it, the fact that you're trying to play politics with it. But listen now, I want to read something for you today. Again, Paulo Kernahan and me, we are friends. Paulo Kernahan's mother just live in a house next door to my mother. And Paulo Kernahan family, very nice people. But me and Paulo, we don't get along. I had to do something with politics. One good day, I will tell you. I'm trying to find the story. Give me a minute again. Right. But I will give Jack his jacket, Jim his gym boots, and Jenny her jumping jacks. This was a beautiful article that Paulo wrote, and I want to read it to you. Because as usual, in the fact that we don't get along doesn't change the fact that we are simpatico and we speak on the same issue all the time. On this, we make the same points, we take the same side, we take the same position. So hear this, and this was again brilliantly written, Paulo. People were so caught up with the Prime Minister's recent mea culpa. Mea culpa is Latin for it's my fault. Take it to mean I am sorry. People were so caught up with the Prime Minister's recent mea culpa. Listen. Hey, we reached the 1.2. Share the video now, man. Let me get people inside of here. Think now warming up. What's the time? People were so caught up with the Prime Minister's recent mea culpa, they completely missed a breathtaking admission. The government knowingly triggered the vaccine fiasco rollout. If Paulo stopped right there, he said everything he needed to say. And for this, Diyal Singh should have been fired. Diyal Singh should have been fired a long time ago. He never should have had that position. This is political games that they're playing with you. But what he did here, this was wrong. Dr. Rowley told the country that despite foreknowledge of limited vaccines, the government proceeded anyway with its patently flawed vaccination plan. So that made it a criminal act because you put people in danger, and that was reckless disregard for human life, if not depraved indifference to human life. Additionally, what the PM downplayed as a miscommunication was actually a misrepresentation of the facts. The public was misled, causing dangerous crowding at health centers across the country. It is tempting to conclude that the principal considerations at work were purely political, a feeble attempt perhaps to seed hope in the population that the end of this nightmare is near. Still, the PM's stunning acceptance of culpability seemed adequate for many people. This was, of course, a reasonable calculation, baffled the public with a hollow act of contrition, thinly disguised as responsible leadership. It would suffice to cover the more damning root cause of conspicuously engineered failure. But tell something here. When I read that line today, I thought if I saw Paulo, I'd hug him and kiss him. So tell Paulo, if you see me, run. It would suffice to cover the more damning root causes of a conspicuously engineered failure. What a play on words. Frankly, Mr. Shankly, it was a political masterstroke, eminently acceptable to the nodding flock. Sure, the rules was transparent among the more intelligent in society. Still, as Trinis are a largely docile species with more bark than bite, the government has moved on from the scandal without further perturbation. To be honest, 1 week later, I'm still marveling at the simplicity of the PM's solution for the government's prickly problem, the widespread uproar that followed the botched vaccination rollout. In all fairness, though, The tactic's effectiveness also relied heavily on the simplicity of the people. Dr. Rowley delivered a political solution for a management and logistics problem. He didn't just absolve the Minister of Health of responsibility in the fiasco. The PM pardoned everyone within the blast radius of that galactic, entirely avoidable debacle. He shielded his administration from accounting to the public for its costly failure. This was a live demonstration of the PM's true talent, that of a shrewd political operator. I'd like to add a double-tongued deceiver and a master liar. A jumped-up reporter pressed the PM to identify one person directly responsible for the fracas. Dr. Rowley doubled down, saying, "I am to blame." Any opportunity to establish trust through accountability was thus squandered in favor of political maneuvering, and it worked. Dr. Rowley understood that in saying the buck stops here with me, it also means that effectively it's the end of the discussion. There's no way to unseat a prime minister outside of an election, so talk done. Well, not exactly. During the news briefing, the PM mistakenly, albeit purposefully, suggested the vaccination blunder was limited to one day. The fallout was, in fact, felt on the Thursday and Friday. Perhaps because there wasn't the concomitant overcrowding on those days, this was interpreted as a win. Less shit blowback is a win to the PNM. On the Wednesday, as the vaccine rollout spun out of control spectacularly, Health Minister Dayal announced an alphabetical solution to the problem. This quick patch was questionable from the jump. As B follows A, confusion ensued the next day. Far less publicized, if at all, was the fact that health centers were only allocated 50 doses per day. Terence Dayal didn't say the first 50 people named beginning with A getting vaccine, He said we're going A to F. This led to many being turned away yet again. Worse still, health centers were dividing their time between regular activities such as NCD and child clinics in a pandemic. Dayal said these decisions were arrived at in consultation with CEOs of regional health authority. Drag all of them into your bullshit, partner. This revelation strongly suggests the machinations of a confederacy of dunces rather than the incompetence of just one man. Total system failure. Again, I tell you this. Anytime I see Paulo Kernahan, I'm going to run him down, hug him up, and kiss him. Hear what he said. Here, I'm going to try to read this one without laughing again. Dayal said these decisions were arrived at in consultation with CEOs of regional health authorities. This revelation strongly suggests the machinations of a confederacy of dunces rather than the incompetence of just one man. Total system failure. Mistakes began long before that fateful Wednesday, starting with the failure of the vaccination registration system. The authorities had several months to get the mechanism working. Instead, they opted for a walk-in arrangement that made no sense for the number of available vaccines. The health ministry also waited until the vaccination rollout had already begun to work on an online vaccine registration platform. The idea that the government's handling of the COVID-19 crisis has been commendable is risible and easily contestable. There is a quote commonly attributed to Albert Einstein: "We cannot solve our problems with the same thinking we used when we created them." I'm not convinced that the same flawed processes, systems, and hive mind that gave us the failures of the past 15 months have been sufficiently changed to prevent recurrences. There certainly doesn't appear to be any preponderance of Einstein's in this administration's decision-making machinery. Moreover, an apology without accountability almost assures that when mistakes are repeated in this high-stakes saga, we will be the only ones to pay for them. Paulo Kernahan, that was your best work ever. Not just to date, ever. And I love the term confederacy of dunces. I want to give you another Einstein quote. Albert Einstein once said, "Two things are infinite: the universe and human stupidity. And what is much more widespread than the actual stupidity is the playing stupid. He said, I'm not so sure about the universe. So, where are we as a country? Silence of the lambs. Because all of these things are happening. We get so much. It's like you're in a fight with people that you can't fight. You're being beaten up. We're getting hammered with information. The investigation into WASA revealed that everybody up at the top either were knowledgeable of or involved in a squandered looting of that company. People from Watson Duke's wife to members of Rowley's cabinet and financier class all have benefited financially. There are 3,000 workers collecting salaries that don't exist. They have one man, they say, that collect $100 million in pension. Right. Good evening, Trinidad and Tobago. June 22nd. It's 8:21. That's right.